Everyone, it's Emily. Today's video is going to be my January TBR. Nope, wrap up. I'm going to be sharing with you the books that I read this month, what I thought about them, would I recommend them, did I like them, etc, etc. January was a decent month actually. I was kind of worried because I got food poisoning in the beginning of the month, so I was not able to read as much as I wanted, but I think we did pretty well. If you don't know, every month I choose during my TBR a book that we can read together. You don't have to, but if you want to, we can read it together. And they're all big books because it's one of my goals this year to read big books. So I finished my first big book of the month. This month I technically read 8 books, but since this edition is 3 book in 1, I'm counting it as 6, or at least that's what Goodreads is doing. But really, I kind of don't mind because I knew I was going to read less books because I was going to read big ones and like omnibus editions and everything. So the first book of the year that we could read together is Dark Materials Trilogy by Philip Pullman. And I had never reread this series. I read it as a kid at like 10 or something. So a lot of these references and just a lot of the whole thing kind of went way above my head, and it was really a pleasure to go back into it. I don't think it's perfect, but I really enjoyed it, and it made me realize how much, like, you know, he came out with La Belle Sauvage, whatever, the next series that is basically kind of a prequel, even though he doesn't want to call it a prequel, still a prequel. And I didn't like it that much, and I was scared to reread this and be disappointed with it, but not at all. This is still amazing. I'm really glad I reread it. I would highly recommend it. I know it's technically like middle grade / YA, but no, there's definitely a lot of things in here that adults would enjoy, and I just overall really enjoyed the world. And please feel free to start a discussion in the comment section about this book if you read it too. If you're going to be saying stuff that are spoilers, please just start by saying spoilers so people that haven't read it can avoid said spoilers. So overall, I'm giving this 5 stars. There were a few weaknesses, I feel like, towards the last book, in the beginning of the last book type of thing, but overall, totally enjoyed myself, would highly recommend it. The writing was beautiful, the world building was just amazing, and yeah, loved it. Technically, the first book I finished this year was something I completed this year because I did start it last year, but you know, I count my books as when I finished them, and it was obviously Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows by J.K. Rowling. It was my first time reading the whole series in English. This was the completion of it. I totally enjoyed myself, obviously give it 5 stars, it's great. I don't understand why people think it's kind of boring. I understand that it's more slow paced and they're not in school and everything, but absolutely loved it, and I'm kind of excited to start again. Eventually. I probably need a little break, but you know, it's not Christmas, it's not the holidays without Harry Potter, so had to complete this. 5 stars, obviously. The next book, I actually don't have it with me, so I'll put a picture because I already lent it. Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, and it's my first nonfiction of the year. Whee! It was great. It's kind of a fun history class. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I know a few people complained about a few things in there, and I get it. It's kind of clear that the author doesn't really like religion, for example. So if that's something you're very sensitive about, I would probably not recommend this book. Personally, loved it, would totally recommend it, and I definitely enjoyed myself. I learned a few things, and I do feel like I liked the beginning and the end the most. And since I liked the ending, I'm kind of excited to read the second book, which is more about, you know, what possible future humankind has, which very excited. So I definitely need to actually get my hands on the second book so I can continue. But yeah, first nonfiction of the year. Very happy. Then a few books that I read during my 24-hour read-a-thon. If you haven't seen it, I'll link it because I don't necessarily talk a lot about what the book is about. I just mostly show you me reading / just giving my first impression. I feel like my books, to have like a complete opinion, I need to think about it, and then sometimes I end up giving a higher or lower rating depending on how it lasts, you know, for me. And some of the books I enjoyed, some of them I'm kind of a little disappointed here. The first book is The Sky is Everywhere by Jendi Nelson, and I absolutely loved I'll Give You the Sun by the same author. It's like one of my all-time favorite YA contemporary book. The author, there's definitely a few similarities between the two books. You're still following a very artistic main character. In this book, for example, the character, she's a 17-year-old girl and she plays the clarinet. And in both books, there's also a lot of grief, and the author is excellent at just describing the whole thing, and it's just it hurts. You're gonna feel the feels for sure. The only thing is in this one compared to the other one, you can definitely see like this is what the first book of her, or at least she wrote this one before I'll Give You the Sun, and you can definitely see that there's been huge improvement. And if you were to only read one of them, I would definitely go with I'll Give You the Sun, but just be prepared. There's a lot of metaphors and it's not for everyone. But in this one, there's a romance slash kind of love triangle, which I wasn't a huge fan of. I definitely loved the family relationship and just that aspect. But yeah, the weakness, I believe, in the whole book for me was the love interest. Just, it definitely felt more YA, and I just, personally, I'm just never a big fan of romance. But if you love YA contemporary romance, what are you doing on my channel? Just kidding. This is definitely something that would probably be more for you than it was for me. But I'm not like unhappy I read it. There's definitely some really great parts in here. The main character lost her sister, and I believe it's page like 85. Like literally this page made me cry, and like maybe not full on cry because I just don't cry easily, but I mean this page just made me feel the feels. So yeah, heartbreaking for sure. Would recommend it, but you know, not for everyone. I believe I gave it 3.5 as I was reading it, and I believe now I would probably like round it up on Goodreads to 4, like 3.75 or something. So yeah, I liked it, but just, you know, there were a few weaknesses. The next book I read in that read-a-thon was this one. This is Dusk or Dark or Dawn or Day by Shannon McGuire, which everyone knows from Every Heart a Doorway. And I liked Every Heart a Doorway more than this one, but she is really great at creating really interesting world. In this one, you're following a main character. She lost her sister and then died kind of in a freak accident earlier than she should have. And she kind of comes back as a ghost, and she is stuck living until she gets to the time where she was actually supposed to die. And to accelerate things, she can give people some time or just take back some time depending on whatever she wants to do. So there's like nice ghosts, some not so nice ghosts, some people that just never want to die, some people that want to try and do it as quickly as possible. She's spending her time in New York, and she meets some witches, and there's things happening in there, and there's kind of a little bit of like, oh, there's a witch going after the ghost. So it's a very interesting world. I do think there were quite a few weaknesses, things that could have been explained better, and there was something lacking for me, and it's kind of hard to pinpoint it. It's a pretty short book. There's like 180 pages, so obviously it's not going to have all the details you want. But if that's something that you think is interesting, you might find it good. But I just thought that it left me very like, I wanted more, and some of the things that were done, I was like, but overall I was interested. So I guess I'm giving it like a 3.5. So it was good, but definitely something lacking in here. I'm not sure if it's the beginning of a series or anything, but if they were another book, I'm not sure I would read it. I'm kind of like on the fence about the whole thing, basically. And then last but not least, I read The Lost Child of Lynchburg by Paul Cornell, which is the second book in the Witches of Lynchburg, I think, series. And the first book I kind of liked. You were following, actually the whole series seems to be a small town, and then there's a few witches, and there's a priest, and there's always things like evil trying to enter that little village, basically. That's like the best way of explaining it. And I feel like that sounds kind of interesting. And the first book, I did like it. There was definitely some, like one main character, when the grumpy old witch, I was more interested into, and I wanted to hear more about her. There's definitely more about her in here, but I still feel like it was lacking. And I overall was kind of disappointed with the story, and it just, I don't know, there was issues with the pacing, and just, I wasn't feeling it, and I'm kind of disappointed because I liked that one character and I wanted to just like the story and continue it. But like, I feel like looking back now, I'm like, I probably didn't hate it as much as I think, but then I rewatched like the clip of me reading it, and I'm like, yeah, I actually really didn't like it. So I ended up giving this 2.5. I think I gave it 2.5 and then rounded it down on Goodreads. So I'm not planning on continuing because I was disappointed. I actually had to like force myself to read the last bit, and I was like kind of reading a little bit in diagonal. So not really a good sign in general. So yeah, it wasn't for me. I can see why some people might like it, but I was interested in the story in this one. So those were the 6/8 books that I've read this month. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section if you have read this one, what is your opinion, or if you reread it with me, or read it for the first time actually. I would love to discuss it, or any of the other books, by the way. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It helps other people find it. Don't forget to check out the 2 videos that we'll be putting on the screen, so you might be interested in checking those out. Don't forget to subscribe because you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.